Another season is in the books for the Professional Fighters League. 2023 has come to a close for the organization, and there are some big things to look forward to in 2024. We've got 6 new champions or repeating champions from last year to talk about their big wins and who they could match up with in the new year against Bellator champions. All right, so we're going to start from the main event and go down top to bottom through the 6 title fights and the 2 featured bouts featuring Kayla Harrison and Derek Brunson as well. So we start in the lightweight division. Olivier Aubin Mercier goes back to back. He is a 2-time PFL champion, $2 million richer, and he gets a big decision victory over Cassius Clay Collard, someone who is the most fan-friendly fighter on the entire PFL roster. And that may still be true even with all the Bellator fighters on the roster now as well. He is an absolute dog. He gave it everything he had, but OAM has proved to be nothing short of quite literally perfect in the PFL. After a 5-year stint in the UFC between 2014 and 2019, a 7-5 record, Olivier Aubin Mercier has since joined the PFL and has not looked back since. He has racked off a perfectly 10-0 record inside of the PFL Smart Cage, 2 back-to-back championships. As I already said, $2 million richer in the bank, 21-5 overall. The Canadian gangster, 34 years old, right in the end of those prime years. So still plenty left to offer, and I think it has shown through and through in these back-to-back seasons that he has been victorious in. And now let's talk about the first potential champion versus champion matchup. Olivier Aubin Mercier versus, well, see, it's not quite as easy for the lightweight division in Bellator because we just had the second semifinal matchup. Alexander Chablis dominated Patricky Pitbull and is supposed to be in the finals against the current champion, Usman Nurmagomedov. However, just around a couple of weeks ago, Usman was suspended for 6 months due to a PED suspension. Hasn't been officially stripped of the title. So what do you do if you are Bellator? Do you see through your lightweight Grand Prix and wait until Usman's ready in 6 months to fight Chablis? Or now, since you've been acquired by the PFL, is this Grand Prix kind of just set to the side essentially, or even not really a thing anymore, especially when you add in the Usman factor? And does that mean we get Chablis versus Olivier Aubin Mercier? Does OAM wait and just fight Usman straight up champion versus champion? I'm not sure all the specifics around the suspension of Nurmagomedov, but I think it's strange that he hasn't been officially stripped. It just seems weird if someone does get suspended, whether it was a purposeful usage of a banned substance or accidental. Regardless, it's still a suspension. It's hard to keep your belt around a suspended fighter. If they're injured or something like that, it's different. So here in this circumstance, I don't know what the plan will be for the PFL and Bellator. But regardless, OAM versus Chablis, who has looked dominant his past few fights in Bellator, especially during this Grand Prix, or against Usman Nurmagomedov, someone who is 18-0 undefeated, ran through everyone that he's fought in Bellator. Both matchups are fantastic. We then move to the co-main event, the heavyweight championship, where the giant 6'8" Renan Ferreira finally put it all together in back-to-back-to-back consecutive fights en route to winning the PFL tournament, getting the championship belt, getting the $1 million. He finishes Denis Goltsov in the second round via TKO and finishes a perfect season. 3 straight knockout victories this year. He had the no contest overturned where he did lose to Rizvan Kunayev at the very beginning of the year, the former Eagle FC heavyweight champion. That was overturned due to another PED type of suspension deal there, which is a shame too, because Kunayev, I was really excited to see him finish out this season. So we'll see if we get to see him in 2024. But regardless, Renan Ferreira did what he was dealt, right? The cards that he was dealt is what he had, and he ran with it. 3 straight wins the championship fight here. and the heavyweight championship matchup that he could see is very interesting. And I say that because not only would it be a PFL champion versus a Bellator champion, Ryan Bader, but you also have the added in factor that Ryan Bader is a former UFC veteran as well. So Renan Ferreira could really do a lot for his name value there in a potential champion versus champion matchup with Ryan Bader. Big time size difference, though, in that one, in terms of length, in terms of height. That would be a very interesting kind of fight to see how Bader would approach that matchup. But Renan Ferreira versus Ryan Bader, heavyweight champions collide in 2024. This one is where it gets fun. We have the women's featherweight champion, Larissa Pacheco. She went back to back in two different weight classes. She's the first PFL fighter to ever win championships in two different weight classes. Last year at 155 pounds, this year at 145 pounds. She's been on an absolute tear. She obviously upset Kayla Harrison last year to win the lightweight championship. Here, got a decision victory over Marina Mokhnatkina. I have to really slow myself down when I pronounce that name. It seems like the clear fight for Pacheco is champion in PFL versus the featherweight champion in Bellator, Chris Cyborg, coming off of a big win over Kat Zingano, very fresh, has a boxing match coming up relatively soon. Champion versus champion, Brazil versus Brazil. Powerhouses, two women that can just shut off anybody's lights. The wrench in the plans is that of one of the featured bouts. Kayla Harrison did get a big comeback victory over Aspen Ladd and pretty much, without saying specific names, called out Chris Cyborg. What do you do if you're the PFL here? Do you want to do champion versus champion, Pacheco versus Cyborg? Kayla fights the winner. Do you want to do Kayla versus Cyborg, the fight that people have clamored for quite a few years now? Although Kayla is no longer the champion, a little bit less caliber on that in terms of the stories going in. I would go with the former. I think you take advantage of Pacheco's hot streak, her momentum right now. She's the champion. Pacheco versus Cyborg. Kayla gets the winner. That's what I think PFL should do. Maga Millions became the welterweight champion, a two-time champion, three two-time champions on this card now in the final end of the 2023 season. Magomed won back in 2018 and 5 years later wins in 2023. And honestly, some injuries and whatnot maybe keeping him back from winning a third one in some of these past couple of years. But he gets the submission over Sadibou C. C had really been on a tear lately, won it last season, had been getting big time finishes and made a complete 360 on his career. People kind of viewed him as just a decision, point style fighter, proved that narrative wrong, but couldn't get anything going here against Magomed. He really just controlled the pacing. Sadibou had some moments, but nothing big enough to really turn the tide, and Magomed took advantage of that and got the submission victory. And he could be going up against someone who just played spoiler over in Bellator at their final event, 301, Jason Jackson. Big time underdog, just beat the undefeated at the time 27-0 Yaroslav Amazov to become the welterweight champion, even finished him via TKO. So that is an interesting fight. They had him obviously square off in the cage. It's hard to say how that fight would go because Jason Jackson just played a big time spoiler, was the underdog, loves being the underdog. He's won 6 or 7 straight fights in a row. Magomed's on a tear, probably in the prime of his career right now, even though he won a championship 5 years ago. That is maybe the most intriguing champion versus champion matchup that we have going right now. At light heavyweight, Impa Kasanganay completed his story. In 2020, he was a part of the most viral knockout in the history of the UFC and maybe of all mixed martial arts when he lost with this crazy spinning kick to Joaquin Buckley. Even had a loss in Eagle FC, but put it all together, fought 4 or 5 times this year, had to win on the Challenger Series just to put himself into the PFL tournament this year, runs through the ranks and gets a very, very decisive decision victory over Josh Silveira. He had a near flawless performance, looked so good, clean, precise, technical, never got tired. The commentary kept pointing this out. I don't believe he ever even breathed out of his mouth. He always had his mouth shut and was breathing out of his nose. To do that over the course of a 25-minute championship fight with a very high pace is absolutely unbelievable. He looked incredible. I'm so happy for Impa that he got this opportunity and took full advantage of it. And he wants Vadim Nemkov, the Bellator light heavyweight champion, one of the best light heavyweight fighters in the world, if you ask me. However, Vadim has kind of hinted at wanting to move up to heavyweight. I will say now with this acquisition and the combination of rosters, I don't quite know if that's what makes the most sense for him. And I don't know if the PFL/Bellator will even want him to do that now when you have like a Bader versus Fajera matchup to go to in the future. I think you have to stay at light heavyweight for at least one more fight and do champion versus champion. Impa Kasanganay versus Vadim Nemkov. And then the final championship fight, Jesus Pinedo completed his own underdog story. He had knocked out Brendan Loughnane. He was still an underdog when he beat Bubba Jenkins and comes in here at essentially a pick'em. But let's be honest, he was the underdog because he had lost to Gabriel Braga in the first fight of the 2023 season. And not only did he get the win, he got the finish via TKO early in round 3. Some people are upset with the stoppage. I can see that argument for sure. It maybe was a little bit early, but he was just unloading on Braga. He was just going to keep landing strikes until he inevitably went to sleep. I was okay with the stoppage, but I do 100%, see the argument for an early stoppage, and I wouldn't have been upset either way. Regardless, he gets a huge, huge victory. Underdog through and through, much like Haush Manfio back in 2021 in the lightweight division. He faces off with the legend of Bellator, Patricio Pitbull. That is a very fun matchup, champion versus champion. Pinedo versus Pitbull, 145-pound gold on the line. Sign me up. And then one final fight to discuss. Obviously, I talked about Kayla already, but non-championship related. Derek Brunson did make his PFL debut at 39 years old, and he got rocked and knocked in round number 1 by Ray Cooper III, but recovered very well, even stole that round, and then ran away with it in rounds 2 and 3 en route to a 30-27 decision victory. I thought that they had said when he signed originally earlier this year, he planned to compete in the 205-pound season in 2024. This was a middleweight bout. Ray Cooper did, however, miss weight. So I don't know what they plan to do with Derek. If he wants to compete in the season next year, will he do middleweight? Will he do light heavyweight? And as well, does he even want any part of a season at this point because of the merger with Bellator? Does he kind of just want to do big fights over there? I would imagine he would want to compete in a season for a chance to win $1 million, as would a lot of people. But we shall see. At this point in his career, I don't feel like he's necessarily going for anything legacy related too strongly. Obviously, if he were to win a PFL championship, that's awesome. But at this point, $1 million probably sounds nicer to Derek than just getting a championship belt or a big fight against a Bellator prominent name. So we'll see what they do. I know the PFL doesn't necessarily have a middleweight division to do a tournament in, so maybe they can build it around Derek, or does it mean Derek Brunson can hop right in and fight the middleweight champion of the world in Bellator in Johnny Eblen? So that's all I've got. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Did you enjoy the 2023 PFL season? Who are your, biggest takeaways in terms of winners that we got with the 6 champions from this year? And are you excited for those potential champion versus champion matchups between the PFL and Bellator? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss recaps like this, fight breakdowns, MMA news, and fight announcements. And I will see you guys in the next one.